This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to another edition of the movie review of the day here on the Pop Experience. I am Steve Riddle, back again for another go-round. And today we are going to be covering one of the big films of the summer of 2026. We've already had a couple up to this point, and now we touch on the big DC release for the year. Of course, the second in the DCU, of course, following last year's Superman, and we stick with the Kryptonians, as it were, because I'm going to be covering the new film Supergirl. This was released on June 26th, well, technically June 22nd, 2026 in Brooklyn, and then June 26th, 2026 nationwide, with a budget of $170 to $186 million. Box office, its opening weekend is projected to make between $47 and $50 million. It stars, of course, Milly Alcock, Matthias Schoenaerts, I apologize for that terrible butchering of the name, Ridley, David Krumholtz, Emily Beecham, David Corenswet, who, of course, is Superman in this universe, and Jason Momoa. This film follows Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, as she looks to save her dog Crypto, while also assisting a young girl whose family was killed by a leader of a group called the Brigands, and they reluctantly work together to try to bring him down. So before I get into this, I will just say, of course, there will be spoilers abound, so if you have not gone out and seen the film yet, do not listen to this. Instead, if you are listening right now, just pause it, go watch the film, and then come back and listen to it, and listen to this. So I just want to give the warning right now. So this is your official spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1. Okay, and now we will go ahead and do my normal setup here, where we will cover the 3 things that worked and 3 things that didn't work. All right, so the 3 things that worked. Number 1, I'm glad that this wasn't just a origin film like we typically sometimes get when we introduce new characters. We've, of course, seen Supergirl to this point. We did see her, as I said, in Superman at the end there when we get introduced to her for the first time. And we actually did see her in the DCEU. She was featured, she was a main cog in the film The Flash, and was probably going to be a big part of that franchise. But, of course, as we know, following The Flash and a few other films that underperformed, the DCEU basically was canceled, as it were, and now we have the DCU. And this is, of course, we're currently in the first chapter of it, and like I said, it started with Superman last year. Now we have Supergirl now, and but like I said, so this does pick up right after Superman, because as we know, in Superman, she showed up on Earth to pick up her dog Crypto, and then went off on her journey again. But we do get flashbacks of her previous life. We get to see the kind of the destruction of Krypton. We get to see that moment where Superman is sent off by his parents, and then we see Kara's parents, Zor-El and Allura. Zor-El, by the way, is the brother of Jor-El, who's Superman's father. They basically had created their own little mini planet from the thanks to a force field that separated like part of Argo City, while the planet was being destroyed. But unfortunately, in doing so, they unknowingly unearthed kryptonite, and the residents started getting sick. So that's why Kara was sent to Earth, in essence, to save her. And we basically kind of see throughout the course of the film that she has this kind of, she actually makes an interesting note, kind of when she and the girl she's helping, Ruthie, when they're talking about like the difference, her and Superman, Kara basically mentions that Superman sees the good in everyone while she sees the truth. So she's definitely a lot more jaded than Superman is, because she's seen her people die from kryptonite poisonings. But the one thing that her parents always told her was no matter what, just make sure you're good. And that's why she's able to, that's what kind of enables her to, assist Ruthie, even though she's more in this obviously to save Crypto. But I did again like that point that we did get a little bit of the backstory of Kara, so that we didn't have to actually go through a full full like origin film, that sort of thing. So I will definitely give him a lot of credit for that. Number 2, getting to know more of the dynamics of the Kryptons. Obviously for those that may not know, they basically, the reason they get so powerful is because they're powered by the yellow sun, which of course is what Earth has. So that's why we see Superman with all his powers, and then we see that with Kara here. But the red sun basically lets them be just like normal, and that's why she mentions about that. She goes to red suns to get drunk, because if she went to a yellow sun planet, the effects won't work on her. And then we find out later in the film that when they encounter a green sun, it basically poisons them. So again, kind of delving more into the the lives of the of the Kryptonians, and kind of establishing that distinction between the suns. And I liked how every time we entered a new planet, they made a point to say like this planet has a red sun, this one has a yellow sun, and then when we get to the final planet, this one has a green and a yellow sun. So it like alternates. So it basically goes back and forth between the two, which is crucial to the end, because when she arrives there the first time, it's the green sun, and she's slowly being poisoned, but then eventually the yellow sun comes down, and that's when she's able to regain her strength and help and prepare for that final battle. So again, I definitely like that little it made it important to kind of distinguish what the different effects of the suns have on the Kryptonians. So kudos to them for that. And number 3, seeing the relationship between Kara and Ruthie grow throughout the film, I thought was really well done, because Ruthie basically is all about wanting to get revenge for her family being killed by Krem, and she's even she even went to this like dive bar to offer her one of her father's swords to get the job done. And one of the like those aliens just said he just took the sword for himself and was going to do it anyway, but then of course Kara stepped in, and that led Ruthie to want to assist Kara. And then of course Kara, who at one point was just like doesn't want to do any, doesn't care about this. Then of course after Crypto gets poisoned by Krem, who's the main bad guy in the film, that's when she gets into the fight. So and then again, just kind of seeing them kind of grow, and and I think Kara kind of sees a lot of Ruthie in herself, and she knows what would happen, because throughout the entire course of the film, Kara is trying to convince Ruthie not to kill Krem, instead to kind of let him live. And Ruthie's just so dead set on killing him, even to the very bitter end after they've defeated the brigands, and Ruthie has that chance to kill him. But again, Kara tells her that you don't need to do this, that your way you're living is how you get your revenge, and that leads Ruthie to not kill him. And then of course Kara kills him anyway, because I'm guessing that she would rather keep the burden on herself than allow Ruthie to get to have to shoulder it. So but again, seeing the two of them kind of go from being like uneasy allies to being in essence kind of good friends, again, I thought it was a nice little through line throughout the film. Because again, I think because Kara obviously sees the good in Ruthie and knows what's going to happen to her if she goes through with her revenge. So she wants to kind of do everything she can in her power to make sure that doesn't happen. So again, really, really, really well done by DC. I got to give them credit for that. And now we'll go on to the 3 things that didn't work. So, number 1, I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of Lobo, who's like one of the who's a bounty hunter. He's after the brigands for another member of their group, and I will say, Jason Momoa was a great casting for that, because it's like he took everything that, because for those that know, in the DCEU, he of course was Aquaman, and basically, it's kind of funny how he got to be a hero here in that film, and now like here he gets to just be, this like, bounty hunter, just, badass. And he's basically kind of what Kara would be if Kara didn't have, the good in her. So he's basically just like, he's, doesn't give a shit. He's willing to, he wants, and he's kind of almost edging Ruthie to, get her revenge by killing Krem. And then, we kind of see them where Kara is able to kind of convince her. But then, of course, when Kara kills Krem herself, Lobo's kind of, gives the nod of approval. But again, we didn't really get too much of him throughout the film. We get him that little, during the big fight scenes, but we didn't really see like in between with him, which I wish we could have, maybe gotten a little bit more from him. He's one of those characters where it's just like, maybe it kind of works in short bursts and not like extended, but I don't know. It would have been nice to see him a little bit more. And I'll be interested to see if we'll see him again, if he shows up down the line for a future film. But again, that's for another day. Number 2, Kara and Ruthie sometimes can be a little bit too trusting, because they do have the they do, when they arrive on the one, I want to make sure I get these right here. When they end up on a bill quest to find the to get information on the brigands, this couple ends up taking them in and agrees to help them. But then of course we find out they double crossed them because their own daughter was in danger. So, and we see kind of throughout the course of this film that both of them tend to take kind of take people a little bit too trusting. So. Again, maybe that's just the naivety of both of them, particularly of Ruthie. But yeah, just, after a while you kind of realize, we got to kind of think maybe that's, that they need to, be a little bit better when it comes to trusting people. Again, particularly when Kara's brought to Barrington, and then only after she gets there that she realizes that the planet has a green sun and that she's been tricked in essence. So, I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then number 3, I wish again we would have got a little bit more Ruthie fighting. Like, I know she's supposed to be a young girl, and she's basically got this sword the whole time, and it's kind of one of those, like, it almost came to a point where it was kind of almost a Chekhov's gun kind of moment where you introduce, the sword in Act 1. It better be used by the end of the film, and it almost wasn't. But then, of course, we do end up seeing Kara use it to kill Krem in the end. So we avoided that, but still, I wish we could have gotten at least a little bit of action from Ruthie. She says that she's had some training and everything, but we didn't see any of that out of her. She just basically relied on Kara to protect her, which, I mean, Kara's the ultimate protector, but still, it would have been nice, especially in that little last battle there, to see Ruthie kind of join in on the fight and help Kara out a little bit. So again, just kind of a little minor nitpick there. And now we'll go ahead and get into my awards here. My MVP of the film, I mean, I think it goes without question. It is Milly Alcock who plays Supergirl. For those that remember, when Supergirl was in The Flash, she was played there by Sasha Calle. And I don't know if there was an intention to have her continue on as Supergirl, but I think they did made the right decision when they eventually did decide to switch it. I think it was a little bit of a better choice because, like I said, I thought Milly Alcock, who's, I thought was a really good choice for that. And she actually only hadn't done much at that point. She'd only been in one film prior to her appearance as Superman, and that was in a film called The School, which was an Australian film. She did kind of get her big kind of claim to fame was being in House of the Dragon, which of course was the spin-off prequel to Game of Thrones. So that was kind of her big claim to fame prior to this. So, but I thought she was, really good as Kara. Kind of going from being that, being basically like, drunk, just couldn't even care. To the moment, I mean, that moment at the end when we see her for the final battle, she finally has the Supergirl suit on. I think was definitely a big moment. Even though we had seen her in it at the end of Superman, this is almost kind of like where she earned her stripes in essence. So I will again, I got to real give good credit to that. Favorite character? I actually would have to say Lobo. I mean, I do like Kara as a character, but I think Lobo's just, for the little time we saw him, he definitely made the most of his screen time. And again, a lot of that's because of how, good Jason Momoa is as an actor. So, I will say that. Then my least favorite character, I didn't really have one in particular, but I think I would probably have to say, Ruthie, just because it felt like at times she just felt like, unwanted baggage, just carrying Kara down. Like I said, kind of in my, kind of earlier, I wish she would have done a little bit more to, to prove herself and to actually help out with some of these fights. So I think I would have to probably say her. And then my favorite scene, there are actually a lot of really fun scenes in here. There's some, some good comic scenes. There's a lot of great, obviously fight sequences. And I would probably say it had to be kind of an extension of the final battle where after Kara gets exposed to the green sun, she then gets exposed back to the yellow sun and gets her power back, and then she shows up to for the final fight, and she and Lobo and the constant destruction. At one point, she had gotten poisoned by Kren's darts, which have kryptonite in them, but she's able to kind of overcome it and bring her power back. And then particularly that final scene, that final battle where all the brigands are kind of surrounding Ruthie, ready to kill her, and then Kara shows up right at the end there and just goes completely to steal the Dragon Ball phrase, Super Saiyan on those brigands. I thought that was a really great scene and kind of an interesting song to go along with it. It was a cover of Jimmy Eat World's "The Middle," which I thought was you just all you see is this like the slow motion camera of like Ruthie just watching Kara just go around, just put these brigands to bed. So I thought that was a fantastic scene. And like I said, there are a lot of really good scenes in this film. So I will a lot of really good fight scenes. So it's just kind of hard to pick one, but I did end up having to go with that one. And then final grade, I actually really enjoyed this film. I think, because there's only been one other Supergirl film prior to this, and that was the one from 84, I believe. And I know that one was more of a one of those it's so bad it's good or funny kind of films, because that was right in the midst of when the Superman series was kind of tapering off, because you had Superman 3 and 4, which aren't particularly considered the best, and then you have this one where they kind of play into the camp almost. But this one, they definitely made it feel a lot more not serious, but definitely trying to make it more of making Supergirl into a legitimate hero. And I thought that they did a really good job in kind of throwing in her origin, but also making it feel like it was a nice continuation from Superman, and having Superman appear periodically throughout the film, I thought helped too. So I'm going to go. So for grade, I'm actually going to go 8 out of 10. I thought it was, again, a really fun film, some good humor in it, some great action sequences. You really kind of, there are moments throughout the film where you feel for Kara with everything she's going through. And I think it was a really good, second film in the DCU. And I will say, Superman last year I thought was really good. And, this was really good. So DC is actually kind of, maybe starting to get a little bit of a role here. I know their next film comes out next year, which is Man of Tomorrow, and I think both Superman and Supergirl are going to be in that. So we'll see if they're able to keep that momentum going. But yeah, I thought this was, again, a really fun film, and again, one that doesn't take itself too seriously, and just one that if you want to check out a good film, I think this is definitely one to do so. Particularly if maybe if you got kids that want to go to Toy Story 5 and you want to check something else out. I think this is a good counter programming to it. Particularly since we're in a period here, we're going to get like I said, Toy Story 5, you got Minions and Monsters, and Moana coming out. So that's 3 big family films. So to kind of have this kind of sandwiched in there, I think was one of those interesting kind of counter programming moves that they made. So we'll see how it pays off eventually as we kind of move forward. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you again for listening, and thank you for continuing to support us as we continue on our journey. Like I said, we have a lot more big films coming out this year. As I mentioned, Moana, Minions and Monsters. Of course, we also have the Odyssey. We got a new Spider-Man film coming out. And a bunch of other ones. So be on the lookout for those, because we are going to cover those as well, as including our theme weeks and everything. So thank you again for listening. Thank you again for supporting us. I am Steve Riddle. This has been the movie review of the day here on the Pop Experience, and we'll see you next time.
It just takes some time.